On arrival, Derek found a place to park far in the back, away from prying eyes. The set of brothers led the way to the pool's gate. They strode forward confidently. It was a trip the three had made hundreds of times. You'd never doubt that they belonged. Jorge pushed on the door, and it swayed open without resistance. A light breeze could have gotten through that security. He glanced at the rest of you and curled his fingers into a thumbs up. Mission accomplished. Hey, we're back. Lovely. That's awesome. The pool was exactly as it appeared in the distant memories you had held on to for many years.
This is awesome!
Jorge and Nico scampered around carefree. They checked out each nook and cranny and had a story to tell about every one. The two brothers shouted reminiscences back and forth across the space. From the time Nicolas caught a bee without being stung, to the day Jorge got hit with a massive nosebleed in the deep end. Yikes! Derek, too, lit up in the presence of an old, inanimate friend. The hit of nostalgia had done wonders for getting over his innate rule-follower tendencies. You were grateful for Liz's stroke of brilliance. It was a perfect addition to your sibling gathering. The young ones were happy, and it had been much too long since you and Derek snuck around somewhere you technically weren't allowed to be in. Yup. The woman in question observed her handiwork from the greatest distance. The sweet curve of her mouth expressed a happiness her dry commentary didn't. It's not the beach, but it is nice. Once the initial excitement settled down, the casual hangout session continued on as it had been left off. Like Derek had guessed, changing venues from one pool to another didn't have much of an impact on what you did, but it'd make for a new memory to add to the collection. Jorge stood near his brothers as he recounted a recent paper he'd penned on the Doppler effect. Nico and Derek gleefully expressed awe at the achievement.
Nice work.
You've always been the smarts of our operation. With 3 chances, at least one of us guys had to have a decent amount of brain cells to rub together.
Aww. Brains, bronze, and looks. You brothers have it all. Ah, the triple blush! Nice! Do. I love it. A full set of rosy faces grinned at you. Oh, all 3, dang! Oh, we hit with the triple thanks, Molly. Hello.
Thanks, Molly.
Jorge's informative explanation was cut off by a fast-paced techno-pop beat. It wasn't a bad tune, but it made Nicolas shriek.
She's calling? Now?
She? Nicolas? He scrambled to retrieve his long-abandoned phone. The events of the morning came back to you with clarity. She was the reason he'd been so distracted. You watched the teen, cautiously. Nico had completely frozen after managing to get the device out of his deep pocket.
What do I do? Answer it,
was Jorge's plain reply. It was perfectly reasonable, and the only other option besides not answer it. Unfortunately, that bit of common sense was of no help to Nico. His breathing was rapid, and the phone shook in his hands.
Derek, you give advice. You've got more experience liking somebody than me. I only found one less than a year ago.
Oh? Really? Has Derek liked someone for longer than a year? I wonder who that could be. Damn. Put on the spot! In most cases, Derek was the first to jump at solving a problem, but he'd pretended not to see that whole scene, at least until he'd forcibly been thrown into the event by Jorge's straightforwardness.
Jorge!
You knew that glower. Derek's brother was threatening to send him to an early grave again.
No.
This is not the time. How can I tell anyone else how to handle romance well? I always choked when I tried talking to my crush.
It's true. This is also the longest ringing phone in history.
Oh.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah.
Well, the brains and brawn can't be denied for the trio, but your one weakness is clear. None of you boys can woo to save your life.
No. She is not my crush.
Uh-huh. As much of a mess Nicholas had dissolved into, he was still together enough to set that misunderstanding straight. He was so offended his voice cracked.
She's a psychic. I've been on her wait list for months.
A psychic? What do you want to know? Nicholas, what's going on?
A psychic? Then just answer.
Jorge reasserted his suggestion, this time with an extra dose of obviously in the undertone. There was no reason to hesitate as far as he could see. It had to be done. Nico bit his lip, twisted his face away from the screen, and for good measure squeezed his eyes shut. Finally, he tapped to answer.
Hello?
A small, high-pitched voice was on the other line. You knew what it sounded like because you heard it yourself. His phone was on speaker, Nico realized with horror. Everyone else was forced to be aware of it as well. Yeah, I'm like, I recognize that school uniform. Oh my god, it's that kid! Oh my god, my brain just exploded. I forgot about the psychic kid from XOXO Droplets. Wait, are you old enough to go to high school? Oh god, I'm old. Oh. My soul just left my body. Holy. I can't believe this is happening. Hello? It's been a while. Man, I can't believe that all came rushing back to me in this moment. Today has been a day of surprises.
Is this Nicolas Suarez? It's Miss Kayla. I'm calling all the way from the St. Sarah Bell boarding school to tell you the future. Give me a 10 and you'll know what to do then.
Her catchphrase was well-rehearsed and full of approachability. Kayla was there to serve, but Nicolas only managed to squeak and fumbled to turn the speaker off without hanging up. Liz didn't have a similar struggle. She couldn't stop herself from voicing a thought aloud and entering the conversation. I've heard that before. St. Sarah Bell.
What do you mean? Who are you?
Rather than replying the queries lobbed at her, Liz instead delightfully declared the answer to a mystery that had been in only her head, I guess? Ah, that's where Shiloh attended high school. I think he was also there for part of middle school, but that's beside the point. Oh yeah, they did have a middle school division, so she could be in middle school, but she could also be in high school. How many years have passed?
Ooh, you know a fellow SS Bite? What's his last name? I can, maybe, if the stars align, tell you about his future.
Nico only watched helplessly. He couldn't cut Kayla off by changing the phone settings now, but words weren't working well enough for him to explain that she did not have to chat with Liz. Either unaware of or pointedly avoiding Nicolas's state, Liz bulldozed ahead. His name is Shiloh Leon Fields, but don't strain yourself to come up with something. He's 22 and graduated from that school years ago. I imagine you won't have much to say about that. That breakdown of the situation was punctuated by a snort from Liz. Miss Kayla came right back with a scoff of her own. Before she even spoke, you got the impression Liz had met a challenger in smugness.
I do know Shiloh Fields. He's got those huge eyes, freckles, and all those hats. I've always lived in this town. I didn't always go to SSB, but I was right nearby when he first moved in. So there, I know him and his whole group. They're infamous.
For all her normal snark, your sister was speechless. She didn't even try to further compete. You couldn't blame her. A random psychic the little brother of your longtime friend happened to call was familiar with another of your childhood playmates. The world is a small place. Whether it was luck, chance, fate, or pure coincidence, it was definitely odd. And you had to wonder if the group she referred to was the same one Jeremy was also part of. He and Shiloh did at least attend the same school together. You might have multiple acquaintances in common with Miss Kayla. Yeah, okay. Oh god, I want to ask all these questions. Okay, so we can ask about Shiloh. We can ask about Jeremy. We can ask about Pran. We can ask about Nate. We can ask about Everett. I can't ask about... I can't... Wait. Gosh, what was his name? He was my favorite. Oh no! My favorite's name is gone from my brain. It was... Oh, this is gonna drive me crazy. No. We're not going forward until I remember his name. He had beautiful red demon eyes. Super smug. Gosh, what was his name? It was such a unique name, and there was a joke around it. Was it Bay? Bay, right? Bay. Yes, Bay. Oh my goodness. Why can't I ask about Bay? I can't because I couldn't remember his name. That's why. No, I want to ask about Bay. Fine. I'm fine. The one guy I can't ask about. Okay. For real? I'm saving here. This is going into the Derek AU video for reasons. I will have to know everything at some point. I'm gonna try to keep it going because I wasted like, I don't know how many minutes trying to remember Bay's name. But, okay. For the sake of everything, we'll just stick with Shiloh for now. Or, you know what? I'm gonna stay out of this conversation. Let the two of them do it. And then we're gonna go down the list later because I need to know everything. After an awkward pause, Nicholas blinked out of the stun log he'd been stuck in and sucked up a fast and full breath. Okay, so I can't find out anything if I don't interject. That's fine. I will wait. I'm going to keep that. That's gonna be something I look forward to. Oh, that's amazing. Sad about Bay, but otherwise amazing.
Sorry about all that, Kayla. It's me, Nicolas Torres. I'm here.
Oh, I almost forgot why I was calling somebody. You're the real client. What do you want to ask about?
It'd kind of be nice to know why this is happening so late. I thought it was gonna be in the morning.
Sorry.
She said, not sounding sorry even a teeny bit.
My big brother Chand visited, and he's more important than you.
Oh.
There wasn't much Nico could say against that retort, though he still couldn't stop himself from looking sour. He learned how it felt to be on the receiving side of such an attitude and didn't appreciate the taste of humble pie. Both Derek and Jorge guiltily chuckled on the sidelines at such a display of karma.
Hey!
The voice coming through Nicholas's phone remained unapologetic, but a spark of genuine interest in the present returned to the self-described future seer.
That's what you wanted to talk about. You've got a big brother too.
Miss Kayla didn't practice the concept of client privacy. That was the second harsh lesson Nicholas got in a matter of minutes. He slapped a hand against one eye and hurried to end the call before any further education on life's displeasure could be taught.
It's cool, forget it. I hope you have a very good day. Tell Chand I said hi.
He doesn't know who you are.
See you.
Goodbye forever!
So you wanted to ask about your brother? Your brother's future? From his face to the phone, Nicholas smacked his fingers against the screen to end the psychic connection. With a deep sigh, Nicholas's whole torso slumped over. He went low enough that his hands almost scraped the floor. The encounter had deflated him.
What was that about?
Jorge posed the question out of simple curiosity. He didn't give a hint of judgment or suspicion, but Nicholas reacted as if Jorge asked where the last cookie went to his crumb-covered little brother.
Nothing. It was about nothing.
The total shutdown took Jorge by surprise. He frowned. The biggest brother of the bunch took that as a sign to step in with a soft smile and some almost parental words.
Well...
Nico can have his fun. We've all wondered about what might happen in the future.
Jorge's usual placidity returned after a shrug. He could accept that Nicolas didn't appreciate any attempt at prying and focused on chatting with Derek about his own matters.
No.
I haven't. I'm not sure I want to know. Realizing everything about me and everyone else was entirely set to the point where each move could be predicted would make the world feel almost pointless, even if it was a good future. But what if it was a bad one? That'd be even worse. I'm convinced. I definitely don't want to hear about my future.
Jorge nodded, to himself mainly. He'd reasoned it all out, and that chapter of the conversation could be closed. Until a low murmur came from the still drooping figure of Nicolas that left an ugly wrinkle across the page.
It's easy for you to say.
He hadn't been trying to join into the conversation. He'd made it crystal clear it wasn't a topic up for discussion. Yet Nicolas was agitated enough about whatever it was to voice the contempt.
What's that supposed to mean, Nicolas?
Free of suspicion was no longer a description that applied to Jorge's words. They were dripping in it. Jorge's attention now on him, Nicolas coolly peered at his brother between the long, thick strands of hair that dangled in front of his eyes. He didn't speak. Derek's characteristic grin strained under the rising tension he'd attempted to sidestep. He clapped his hands together and made another go at shifting focuses.
That's a bummer.
Nicolas really is getting older. He sighs a lot more nowadays, huh? The weight of the world is starting to get to him. That sucks, but there's no avoiding it as you grow up.
Derek succeeded in getting Jorge's icy stare pointing his way instead, but it didn't last. Jorge watched him intently, only long enough to read what he could from his older brother's acts and deeds. Then he came to some kind of conclusion. At that point, the middle Suarez turned again to Nicolas. He didn't look at him. It was through him.
Some things don't change even when you're older.
Jorge didn't grit his teeth or shout. There was a lack of feeling, a disconnectedness that was even worse than anger would have been. Nicolas's fingers tightened into fists and he sprung right up. He stared into his brother's face defiantly. He shook with an impotent rage Jorge lacked. Jorge had been looking down on him, and easily still could even at Nicolas's full height. That added an extra sting to what the younger Suarez said next.
You know what sucks more than growing up? Being the last to grow up. I'm the one who gets left behind. I'm basically an only child now. It's just me and Mom and Dad at home.
The flash of fury burned out quick. Nicolas began to crumble with every cracking sentence.
It's not fair.
And the worst part is, I'm probably just being annoying, right? The spoiled baby of the family who's always crying for attention. Of course, adults have to go out and do their adult things. It's dumb to think people could do anything else. So I can't even talk about it with anybody.
Nicolas's plight devastated Derek. He was ready to move heaven and earth to solve the conundrum of aging if he could. But Jorge's features didn't so much as twitch.
Did you really not tell anyone?
Tell anyone what? It was a callousness that left Derek speechless. He couldn't stop the days from going by, and he couldn't even stop his younger brothers from being mad at each other. Nicolas and Jorge Suarez glared at one another unflinchingly.
And what is that supposed to mean, Jorge? You told Derek, didn't you? He knew how you felt, and I bet he knows what the call was about. What else would have been talking about by the pool? You can always talk to Derek. Only him.
Jorge had said it all without saying it. He was accusing Nicolas of loving Derek more than him, and Jorge hated that. Ugh.
Well, am I right?
The staring contest ended right there as Nicolas hung his head down, dropping his glance to the floor. That was only a battle. The war wasn't over yet.
You're so smart, and somehow not smart at all.
Unaffected by the insult, but distinctly frustrated from the lack of a real answer, Jorge once again looked to Derek. Derek's mouth had continued to hang open in horror, but he finally closed it. He too turned his gaze away from the middle child. He didn't have any words to offer that time. Jorge stood there between his two silent brothers, futilely turning from one to the other. They were crowded together in the same space, but seemed to be so far away. Ultimately, it was the lack of a response that Jorge took as an answer. All alone, right next to the ones who he cared about most, Jorge whispered bitterly,
Fine.
I knew it.
The suffocating stillness exploded. Nicholas wasn't finished.
You don't know shit! I know there's no need having 3 of us around. Derek is more than enough for everybody!
Shots were fired back and forth with no ground gained on either side. Yeesh! I feel like this has been bubbling under the surface for a while.
I was literally 6 when I obsessed over Derek. You can get over it already. I'll get over it as soon as you do.
Nicholas thrust his arms out wide. Caught up in the heat of the feud, the need to take Jorge down, he sacrificed the secret he'd held onto so tightly.
Well, guess what, Jorge? I did tell Derek about that call. That means he can tell you all about how I never even mentioned him to the stupid psychic. I have 2 older brothers, not just him. I haven't forgotten that, even though you're so sure I have.
Oh, damn! And the awful part is I also assumed he was calling for Derek's behalf. Of course he's got 2 older brothers. Oh god, I feel like crap. I'm gonna go. I gotta go hide now. I feel awful. Jorge, I was right there with you, my man. I'm so sorry. I feel like a terrible person.
When I asked for the reading, Derek was already long gone. I wasn't gonna demand the universe bring him back. He had better things to do. Hey, that's not...
Derek instinctively spoke out against the idea that his family was such a low priority, but managed to hold his tongue. This was between Nicholas and Jorge. Neither could even see Derek amid their mutual misdirected hurt.
I wanted to ask how much longer I'd at least have you nearby. Maybe you'd go away after college, or maybe you'd stay here. I didn't know. But you might have felt bad if I asked you directly in case you were gonna leave. I didn't want to hold you back from going for whatever life you had in mind with or without me around. And that's the only reason it was easier to admit to Derek. So there!
Nico's arms were folded defiantly as he mimicked the snide closing remark the psychic used to tell Liz off. However, nothing about him came across as truly satisfied. He had to twist his face away to try hiding how glossy his eyes were. Nicholas couldn't avoid the throat-clenching emotion in his voice. Jorge was completely floored. Shock, sorrow, and relief fought for control over his face. It contorted with deep creases. You understood then why Derek had kept quiet about what happened. It wasn't his place to admit something like that on Nico's behalf. After a pained stretch of silence, the feeling that settled in Jorge's heart was an Olympic-sized pool of regret.
I'm sorry.
I just can't get over how, like, the setting is their old pool, too. It's just like, you know, that's when they were all kids, when the hurt started. And now things are coming to a head here. It's just like, oh, man. It's the perfect backdrop, though. Oh. Man, this got emotional real quick.
Nicholas, I'm so sorry.
It was a struggle for Jorge to speak. He swallowed thickly, his Adam's apple bobbing. He didn't try to cover how watery his eyes had become.
You were right about me, and I was wrong about you. I haven't gotten over the memory of being the odd man out, even though it was years ago. That's not fair. None of it has been.
Jorge looked to the sky, getting lost in its great expanse as his mind sank deep into the past.
You and Derek have to have moments that are only for the two of you. We're not a set. We're individual people and we have our own relationships. Though to me, it's still always felt as if there's more moments of Nicholas and Derek than any other. When I was a kid, I never thought I could win. You were clear about whose company you were looking for. I didn't want to make things awkward by being a third wheel, and mostly, I didn't want to test the water to see how much I was welcome between you and Derek. I was too afraid that I wouldn't be. It was better to tell myself I didn't need to be part of it.
His eyes and hands squeezed shut. Jorge was unable to face his brother directly. He still forced himself to continue.
But as much as I counted myself out, I wanted to be included. I wanted you to say Jorge was back when I showed up, or that you wouldn't go somewhere if I wasn't coming too. And I wish I admitted that a long time ago.
I'm not crying. It's ninjas chopping onions, I swear. Oh, boy. This family. The stiffness over Jorge's whole form released after he said his truth. His fists unclenched. His shining earth-green eyes could be seen again. He'd let go for real. While Jorge was a pillar of peace, his brother was the opposite. Nicholas vigorously scrubbed at his face, transferring tears and snot onto his bare arms rather than his face. When he could at least pretend he'd pulled himself together, Nicholas spoke again with absolute conviction.
I'm sorry I ever treated you like that. Back then, and still now, all I think about is how I feel on stuff. Obviously, it was easy for me to move on as if it was nothing, 'cause I was the one getting my way. I stopped wanting it to be that way, and that was my closure. But now you're the ones having a good time while I'm watching on the sidelines. There's barely a place for me anymore. I really know how it feels, and instead of maybe getting some empathy, I still only thought about me and needed everyone else to care. Sorry, Jorge. I guess I got what was coming with this.
That conclusion brought a disagreeable frown to Jorge's face. He looked over the youngest through a narrowed, serious gaze, but the firmness was founded on affection. It was unmistakable then. Jorge wasn't simply a middle child. He was an older brother. All along, in his own way, and even when Nicholas couldn't see it, he always had been.
No.
Nicholas. No, you didn't. You were in elementary school, remember? Why should you be punished for that? Besides, you're not giving yourself enough credit. Me and Derek did what we wanted to do with your support. It's been years since you put your feelings over ours. Going to college, moving out, growing up at different times. It brings separation. But abandoning you isn't what you deserve. And even if you did, I wouldn't be glad over it happening anyway. I don't care about fairness. I'm biased.
Jorge's brows stayed pinched, but he lost the air of a teacher schooling their misguided student. The warmth of his affection was too apparent.
Above all else, my family should get as much good as they can, even if it means they're spoiled sometimes. They should be spoiled.
Don't worry.
And that sentiment goes double for my little brother. Derek might have too, but don't forget either, Nico. You're the only one I've got in the whole world.
Aw, that is so sweet. Stop. Stop. My heart is full and overflowing with tears. I want to hug both of them, just like put them in a big blanket. Nicolas's tears went unwiped. They were free to roll down his face while he shouted as loud as his lungs could manage. Are you gonna shout Jorge's back? No, okay. I would have broke then. That would have been it. That would have been the end for me. This is good too.
I love you, Jorge. When you decided to pick a college nearby, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It's great when we work on those way too big puzzles together and play the weirdest games we can find.
Thank you.
I'd never want to lose that, even though I know you can't hang around here for the rest of your life. I want you to keep coming back. I'm grateful every time you come through the door.
Jorge's lips trembled. His blinking was rapid. For someone as reserved as him, it was a display of emotion no lesser than Nico's heartfelt declaration.
I don't want to lose you either. I love you.
Sheepishly, Jorge lifted his arms from his sides. It was a small, subtle gesture. He didn't even bring them all the way up, but he took the initiative to reach out. Hug it out! Hug it out! Nicolas didn't need any more of a sign than that. He bounded ahead and jumped into his big brother's chest. Jorge's long-held fears of rejection were shattered for good. Yay! Oh, it's so beautiful. I love it. It took a second to get over the emotional and physical stun of Nicolas's hold, but soon Jorge reciprocated. The two embraced one another fully with nothing left standing in between. They were left in peace to have that. But once it was over, and the two young men began to part, the piece missing from their brotherly bonding took a step forward.
I'm sorry too.
The unexpected statement got immediate laughter from the recipients. Jorge and Nicolas threw their heads back and stayed unified, with an arm over the other's shoulders.
What did you even do?
For those two, nothing was more of a joke than Derek, Mr. Responsibility, the perfect guest Suarez, needing to apologize. He just has a lot of feelings, okay? And the only way to express it is to say, I'm sorry. Derek scratched at the back of his head, accepting his turn as the third wheel. He might be awkward over butting in, but Derek absolutely meant what he said.
I did way too much of the wrong things and not nearly enough of the right things. I'm the one who insisted on handling Nico all the time because I didn't want to ask for help, and because I saw myself as the only big brother of the family. My overinflated sense of importance and martyrdom is what took away any space for Jorge. But that was only when I thought there was something I needed to handle. If everything was fine, I wasn't there at all. I was too busy with school and practice trying to prove myself. Neither of you are to blame for how everything went down. You had to be demanding to get my attention, or you had to stay out of my way.
Alright, look. How about you guys were all kids? You were all damn good kids. Hug it out. You guys are great. You're close brothers. This is all coming out right now. It's just so much.
I really messed up.
No! You guys,
I should have been there, not more, but better, and let you have each other too. The least I can do is apologize.
The eldest's attempt to accept responsibility was met with an almost fatherly chastening from both his younger siblings. Good. Jorge was able to glance down at Derek the way he could with his one little brother, while Nicolas shook his head and let out a world-weary sigh.
That's not true at all.
No.
Yeah. No way, Derek. I took demanding attention to a whole other planet. Sure, I was a kid, but that doesn't mean it was cool and easy to live with. You did the best you could. Better than I would have if I had to be the responsible one. Can you imagine what a disaster that would have been? We wouldn't have survived this long.
That imagination brought Nico's giggles back. It lifted a sad smile onto Jorge's face, not the comment itself, but seeing his younger brother happy. He spoke sincerely to his older one.
It's okay.
I need to say sorry as well. You didn't try to push me aside. You didn't have a chance to. I saw what I saw between you and Nico, how you were so close. You had something that I wasn't part of. But I decided entirely on my own to wait around for you both to come to me, while never even attempting to be there for either of you. I should have made an effort for my family. You were there for me!
Jorge in his calm presence was one of a kind in his family. He was used to those around him being far louder. However, Derek's and Nicholas's insistent yells still caught the middle son off guard. It was a full rejection of his earnest admission, but as much as Jorge believed that about himself, the refuting of it wasn't a surprise to anyone else. Each brother viewed their own faults as source of all problems, while the others could barely see those shortcomings past the love they held for their family member. No. From end to end of the semicircle of Suarez's, smiles began to spread.
Alright. We're all sorry and none of us need to be. How's that?
Yeah.
It's great. It's great!
That's a perfect summation. You're all sorry, but none of you need to. Perfect. The two spoke the same words, one after the other, still linked together. Derek watched them, swelling with pride that he got to call them his family, his brothers, and his friends.
Perfect. But, let's reframe what I was saying.
Derek had a grin, bright with confidence. He never looked more like the brother he hoped to be as he strode up to his little siblings. He clapped a hand to each of their backs, making a proper huddle among the trio, and stared at them head-on.
I got you.
Nico, if you ever decided you were too big to need your older brother anymore and never wanted to see me, it'd break my heart. Please don't stop letting me be there as much as I can.
Nicholas sniffled once more before nodding, determined.
Jorge, you'll always be my co-pilot. I know you've been backing me up since we were kids. And you're welcome with me anywhere, anytime. Your presence is my pleasure.
Aww. A dark red flushed over Jorge's face. He was too embarrassed to react with steadiness. Instead, he offered a shaky thumbs up in the center of the loop. It was true that Jorge was Nicholas's reliable big brother, and he might have been the tallest of the bunch, but in front of Derek, you could never miss that he was also a little sibling. Letting out a bark of laughter, Derek gave the boys another smack across their shoulder bones for good measure.
Oof!
I promise.
And I promise that I'll always find a way to see you sooner or later. And when I can't be there in person, I'll call. We're never gonna lose touch. I love you, bros.
Tightening his grip on their shoulders, Derek physically signified his vow to never let his brothers go. Nicholas responded by letting his head rest on Derek's solid arm.
Thanks.
Thanks, Derek. I can call too. Love you. Same. For both of what he said. I'll call and I love you.
He followed after Nicholas in more than words. Jorge placed his cheek against the well-trimmed side of Derek's head. This time, with the full trio, the Suarez brothers snuggled in a loving embrace. You looked on in relief. The tension, hurt, and subsequent comfort had been easily felt even without participating. Yeah! You'd been entirely frozen, attention fixed on the three brothers until a nudge to your arm brought focus to your own situation. Liz was smirking at you. At some point, both of you had stood. You couldn't remember exactly when you'd gotten on your feet. In the spirit of sibling affection, let me say that I appreciate being here together with you, Molly. Because it'd be even more awkward if I was stuck watching this scene by myself. Shh, don't interrupt them. I love you too, Liz. Those weren't the words she had said, but you were certain it's what she meant. You get me. The two of you snickered into the palms of your hands. It was an attempt to be a little quiet, but your own sibling camaraderie was notable enough to gain onlookers of its own. Yes? Your sister and you glanced over to the intimate scene of brotherly love, only to find the group of them staring back at you. Yes? Jorge, why are you so scandalized? The three men expressed a gradient of embarrassment, Nico being the least fussed, and Jorge the most. Because they weren't by themselves. Gotcha. Derek was in the middle of this scale, too amused and uplifted to feel that ashamed. But each came to the exact same conclusion about it. One more apology was needed after all. These guys.
Sorry! I totally forgot you two were there. Oops. Sorry again, it's my fault. I pushed Nico to talk at a bad time, and we shouldn't have aired that out in front of you.
I would say not. She leered forward, and the floral bracelet she wore jangled on her wrist from the dramatic way she placed her hands against her hips. You know, I was very upset when you spoke about Derek being enough for everyone. I could hardly stay out of it. No offense, but Jorge is my favorite of the Suarez trio. Dang. Dang. Liz wasn't known for a subtle touch. She was on the nose with all her thoughts and opinions. That kind of directness could only lead to one thing, Jorge blushing again.
Liz, you don't have...
A large hand landed square on Jorge's head, startled him into stopping. It was Derek's. He winked amiably.
Hey, she's allowed to speak her mind after we did, and it's a solid choice. Agreed. As a sensible lady with good taste.
Jorge smiled shyly.
Thanks.
Both of my brothers are my favorite. Me too.
Right.
Same.
Responses flowed into one another, the other in perfect order, like dominoes lined up exactly so. I don't want to have to say. I love them all. But I have a favorite, though. But I do have a favorite. But I feel bad for Nicholas if I say Derek's my favorite. Nicholas is like, well. I gotta do it for the blush. Derek is my favorite.
Really?
Look how smug the two are in the back, like, yeah.
Yeah, another smart call. Derek is the best. Not even joking when I say that is the answer that makes the most sense.
Glancing between the faces of each, noting the individuality and familiarity in their features, you thought getting to spend this trip with these brothers was something you'd always be thankful for. When Derek's laughter filled the air, it rang differently than before, playing a new song.
Man.
If I was younger, this would have been the point where I jumped right into that pool, clothes be damned. Luckily, I'm enough of an adult to remember I've got an expensive phone in my pocket, not to mention my wallet.
I'm still jumping in the pool. Just gotta put my stuff down. Geronimo! That solution was all the youngest Suarez needed to literally jump at the chance for more trouble. Nicolas's eyes glittered like the sun-drenched water tempting him.
Yeah!
I want to go in the pool!
Far less enthusiastically, Jorge joined the impromptu swim plan.
Sure.
That doesn't sound too bad.
Yet the nonchalant way he shrugged over it seemed even more daring than Nicolas's open exhilaration.
Let's do it!
Before the third brother weighed in, Nicolas started to pull out his phone, the original match that lit a slow-burning fuse so much earlier in the day. Though you were faster, your things were already sitting on one of the side tables. That was it for Derek Suarez. His little brother might have been able to party harder than he could, but he didn't intend to be left that far behind. He wasn't so old after all.
I see how it is.
It's on.
4 phones, as well as wallets, keys, coins, old receipts, and wrappers, and a few stray puzzle pieces were fished out and piled up for safekeeping. Your sister's belongings stayed within the warmth of her romper. Yeah, it did. She was once again the incredulous observer rather than a participant. This episode clearly entertained her more, though. Well, as the actual oldest sibling here, I'll supervise from up here.
Thanks, Liz.
A teasing chorus cheered. I can always count on my big sister to look out for me. Then you were off. Alongside Derek, Jorge, and Nicolas, you dashed in a row straight towards the edge and flew into the air without hesitation. 1, 2, 3, 4! The brothers and you crashed through the water, disappearing into an explosion of white bubbles. A shiver went through your body, hit with such a sudden shock of cold. Your heavy clothes fought against you as you rose, but you broke through the surface again. Seconds later, 3 brunette heads with smiling faces popped out around you. Every Suarez brother celebrated with reckless abandon.
Woo! Awesome! Yeah!
Liz applauded her show from outside the splash zone. It was a wise choice. Not only because of the obvious crossfire from the jump, but because Nicolas immediately started flinging water skyward. That offense wasn't taken floating down. The old water war was waged in another age. Smacking and splashing, defensive and offensive moves, and general merrymaking occurred in the depths that summer day. When a truce was finally called, part of the peace talks included drying off before going home. And so, you and the brothers clambered out of the pool. Jorge gratefully took a seat once more. After so much excitement, a metal pool chair was a welcomed friend. You and Liz lounged by him. Even Derek and Nicolas gave the chairs a chance. Your merry gang of 5 whiled away the best of the afternoon together. The lives you were leading were so different that there was never an end to new things to tell and hear. But eventually it was unanimously agreed that it was time to bring the party back to the Suarez home. The kids ought to visit with their poor old parents, as Liz put it. The second pool, that was technically their first pool, was left behind. After a short drive, you'd made it back. It was nearly evening by then.